To feel that comfort and joy of being welcomed into a home of such warmth and fun, with the promise of a great meal, laughter, visiting with friends and family, that could be provided by my mom. It is that woman that I have had the honor of spending 27 years caring for. Jeanne Frances Duncan was born in Huron, South Dakota on July 6, 1928. The Depression raged as Mom grew up. She knew she was lucky, though, because her father always worked, thanks to his significant skills. Huron, South Dakota was a medium-sized town with a small-town vibe. There was room in the suburbs to keep chickens, geese, ducks, goats, rabbits, dogs, and cats, all of which young Jeanne enjoyed keeping and raising. Though when it was time to eat those rabbits, she was none too happy. Her neighborhood had concrete gutters, making them excellent for ice skating. She longed for as many snow days as the falling flakes would allow. It was in large part because of that snow that her father would move the family to Southern California. Summer vacations were often in Nebraska and Minnesota, visiting relatives, playing in lakes and rivers, and enjoying being shooed down the storm cellar for tornadoes. She always spoke fondly of that part of the country that she came from, to say nothing of Mount Rushmore. She saw it many times before it was even completed. It was a great source of state pride. Actually, you may not know, but Mount Rushmore is the center of the universe. Mom certainly asserted that her entire life. The Badlands and Wall Drugstore were serious favorites as well. Over the years, we all traveled to these spots, on vacation, and many trips to her high school reunions. Days after high school graduation, her father moved the family to Southern California for good weather and work. It was a jarring time, leaving all her friends and the only life she ever knew. She would say it was like as if I fell off the face of the earth. Later, however, she would remark that moving out here was the best thing that ever happened to me. The family settled in Paramount, and they had the good fortune to open a neighborhood store on their own property. They went on to build a small apartment complex, which still stands today at 68th and Paramount Boulevard. Robert, her father, did years of work in the aerospace industry. Her mother, Jessie, worked as a nurse and had varied interests and skills. Mom inherited that and took pride in artisan activities, including crocheting, quilting, embroidery, sewing of all sorts, making dolls and such. Her craftsmanship was serious, and her attention to detail was great, especially at the sewing machine. Beautifully detailed Care Bears and Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls were among her finest work. All the children and grandchildren naturally provided piles of torn and worn clothing for her to mend masterfully. But I digress. Where were we? Just settling in California, that's it. Mom got into roller skating here, which led to a bright future. One particular night, she went to the Hippodrome roller rink in Long Beach. We would later learn that when confronted with the challenge of betting that he could not skate with that girl over there in the black pantsuit, George said, "I'll do better than that. I'll marry her." That story is the stuff of legend, and every indication is that it's actually true. After knowing each other for 28 days, they were wed in LA's City Hall, November 6, 1948. Jeanne did not even know what her last name was going to be until the ceremony. As we all know, the marriage lasted for over 40 years until George's death in 1992. Tom was born 9 months to the day after the wedding. Within 27 months, Randy, 1950, Doug, 1951, had arrived. That was quite a pace. In 1954, Kathy arrived, followed by Bob in 62 and me in 70. We all graduated from the same high school, Paramount, and by the time I came along, some of the teachers thought I was the child of my older siblings, the result of a 21-year range in our births. It's quite a clan that has led to 14 grandchildren and 13 great-grandchildren. Those years of raising children and developing a proper home with George were busy and productive. Mom had the privilege of being mostly a stay-at-home mom, with great attention given to all 6 of us. She was incredibly well-adjusted, and that made for a home that had a good balance of discipline and fun, order and wackiness. Domestic engineer is a fine title for what she could achieve in the home. Working hard was a given in light of the amount of work that followed a large family. Days filled with multitasking, cooking, laundry, childcare, husband care, yard work, housework, and so on went on for decades. No wonder she needed some joint replacements. How can you tell if a person is properly practical and skilled? Simply observe them solving the challenge of not needing to thaw all that frozen lasagna, just needing a chunk, really. The obvious answer lies in the garage. After a light cleaning of the blade with paint thinner, just cut the lasagna on the bandsaw. This is how Mom solved that practical challenge with skill, providing rich takeaways for all of us. The work laid before her was approached with pride, and it showed in the results. The food was tasty, our socks were bleached bright white, and reliable help with homework was always available. Like the hub of a wheel, Mom was a source of support. Even her own mother relied on her for care, living with us for 8 years. The house was often so busy in those years of kids, but it was not all work. Mom and Daddy could get the work and play balance. Literally roofing the house together, and then a few hours later taking off for a favorite restaurant. You can put money on the expectation that we wee ones were expected on the roof helping as soon as we were stable on our feet. That expectation of teamwork to get the job done has served us well. It is a gritty work ethic that we have inherited. The work that all 6 of us pursued has been influenced by our parents, all excelling at trades of industry. Tom, a mechanic, Randy in big truck parts, Doug, a mechanic, Kathy, a domestic engineer, Bob, construction superintendent, and me, entertainment production. We acquired a good base of skills at home to inform our careers. Lucky us. Also, Tom being a Navy vet and Doug being an Army vet serves as a source of pride for our family. Mom and Daddy also had an affinity for light-hearted leisure time. At some point in the early 1970s, their dear friends Tom and Jerry Pelton shared a card game called Pennsylvania Rummy. It quickly turned into California Rummy and changed the face of their social lives. On a Friday or a Saturday night, the lights often burn bright at our dinner table, and a good dose of that laughter would make it all the way out to the street from that card game. Dear friends and family, the Peltons, Christians, Havards, Freeses, Seymours, and many others might be gathered round. This was serious fun, relaxed chatting, and friendly therapy after a long week. Certainly, activities did not stay indoors. There was a great amount of outdoor biz as a family, and Mom led the charge. She possessed a sense of adventure that was ever present, with a taste of cavalier, at the ready for whatever activities were dreamed up. Prolific tent camping led to RV camping and decades of water skiing. Mom was skilled on water skis, as well as a good boat driver, towing wee ones and George around the Marine Stadium. Travel to our Fraser Park cabin was something she loved very much, and it was exciting for all of us to get out of town. A study in spectacular scenery were our camping trips. Yosemite, the Sequoias, Mill Creek, Barton Flats, and so on. The fresh air, the vistas, the trees and animals were all things Mom adored. Even in town, you couldn't go anywhere without her remarking how well you could see the mountains. History often played a leading role. For example, in November 1947, Howard Hughes had a very busy morning in Long Beach, and so did Robert and Jesse Duncan, getting their family down to the water to see the spruce goose fly. one of a handful of people to see the historic flight. She referred to it often, especially when we were in that area. Years later, with much excitement, she would watch the Queen Mary arrive. Her sense of place was remarkable. She so appreciated Long Beach and all of LA, and was fascinated by all the cities in between. We often cruised around, taking them all in. Maybe it comes from that distinct optimism and freedom that came after the war. The remarks about what was passing her window as we drove were constant, inquisitive, and genuine. That sense of place was distinct when we would visit Disney or Knott's, rich reminiscing of their history and how they used to be. She saw those institutions grow over the years and relished a visit to either one, and remained very interested in my stories from backstage at Disney. This love of a short trip was coupled with the love of a long trip. Curiosity and enjoying beautiful scenery drove a desire to go, to keep moving. Over the years, we made it to Central Europe, London, and Hawaii, memories she cherished. When I was on the road, she got to travel the U.S., visiting remarkable cities. Seattle, Chicago, Boston, New York, D.C., Philadelphia among them. This travel brought a high yield of place name, sweatshirts, and t-shirts, which is almost all she would wear. She would look down at her shirt and say, "Ooh, remember that? Great, great," remembering how fun this or that destination was. Spontaneity came naturally to her. She would hop in the car and arrive with lightning speed if I called her with a last-minute ticket for a show at the Music Center. Over the last 30 years, she became a proper patron of the arts and loved it. Her arts intake used to be the ice-capades, the rodeo, and the occasional pop concert. It turned into never missing any show that I worked on, everything at the Music Center, even the occasional opera or philharmonic event. For the last 25 years, she hardly ever missed an opening at La Mirada Theater. World-class colleagues of mine would use her as a barometer of a show's quality. If the mama liked it, you passed the ultimate test. We took her to some concerts that were un-grandma-like, but she loved them. U2, Peter Gabriel, Eddie Izzard, Louis Black among them. She joined the professional showbiz ranks. Thrilled was she to spend years as a checkroom lady in the Amundsen Theater and the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, even getting to work the Oscars. As a scenic artisan, the amount of drops, costumes, props, and scenery she made was significant. To say nothing of all the runs to McMaster and such to pick up endless parts and supplies for shows. As well, insisting I pull over on the freeway to pick up firewood on the roadside was not a bridge too far for her. It was often a reality for me. In her later years, she became a spectacular supervisor. If any work was going on, she would like to observe, be it in our garage, Bob's garage, or out on a job site. Eagle eye was she for spots you may have missed, and was quick to let you know. "Now, should that be like that?" she would inquire, knowing very well how any job should really look when it's completed. An inquisitive, "What you working on?" was awfully sweet to hear as you were toiling away. Selfless of her to take interest in whatever we may have been working on. To have her around was supportive. Well-adjusted is how I often put it. But specifically, she was a stable constant, a most reliable source of straight talk, advice, and some ethical perspective. If something was off, she may issue a, "Now that just don't seem right." This constancy created a creature of habit in her everyday life of late, characterized by things we will always associate with her. El Pollo Loco, Sveinhard's sweet rolls, and anything sweet utterly sustained her. I admit I would catch shit for defiantly warming a sweet roll for 11 seconds as opposed to her requested 8 seconds. It helped her mind to stay sharp, to constantly do crossword puzzles and watch game shows that had skill and guessing involved. She really held her own on the trivia scene. All the gathering of knowledge, of bits and bobs, she was keeping track of everything, always, all along the way. It is only now that I see my 27 years of care for her quality of life are dwarfed by her 48 years of care for mine.